We've all been there, right? You're crammed into that tiny little cubicle at 30,000 feet, you press the button, and whoosh, a deafening roar instantly just whisks your waste away. But seriously, where does it actually go? Today we're unpacking the universally relatable but kind of rarely discussed engineering marvel of aircraft sanitation. We're going to break down the history, the hidden physics, and the real-world logistics of what really happens after you flush on a plane. So let's just dive right in and tackle the absolute biggest, maybe most terrifying question everyone asks when they hear that loud flush. You know the urban legend, right? The idea that airplanes just open a hatch and drop everything onto the unsuspecting world below? It's a rumor that's literally been around for decades.
But let's separate myth from fact here for a second. There is no way for a plane to dump waste mid-flight. They are physically incapable of doing it. I promise you, pilots do not have a top-secret eject sewage button in the cockpit. The absolute fact is, every single flush is securely pulled into sealed holding tanks. These usually hold about 170 to 200 liters, and they are safely locked away in the belly of the aircraft until the wheels touch the ground.
So where in the world did this crazy myth actually come from? Well, it stems from a super rare phenomenon called blue ice. Basically, every once in a blue moon, a valve seal might fail or you get a tiny leak. And because the air outside at cruising altitude is literally freezing, this mixture of waste and a blue liquid disinfectant called SkyChem instantly turns to ice on the outside of the plane. Then, as the plane descends and warms up, chunks of this blue ice can break off and fall to Earth. Wild, right? People believe this was intentional so strongly that back in 2005, the FAA actually had to issue a formal fact sheet just to convince the public that planes weren't targeting them.
All right, Section 1, from buckets to vacuums. Listen, it was a long and, frankly, quite messy road to get to the modern airplane bathroom. Early aviation was definitely not glamorous. Back in the open cockpit days of the 1920s, pilots literally resorted to using their own shoes or holes in the floorboards. For passengers, airlines just provided slosh buckets at the back of the plane. Yikes. By the 1950s, we upgraded to recirculating blue water toilets, but it really wasn't until 1975 that a guy named James Kemper patented a revolutionary vacuum system that completely changed the whole shebang.
But to really, truly appreciate Kemper's invention, we have to look back at the 1930s. The British supermarine Stranraer flying boat had a toilet that was literally just a hole open directly to the outside air. So imagine this. You lift the lid mid-flight, and the high-speed air rushing past the opening creates this massive, loud, resonant noise. It was so loud that crews famously gave the aircraft this hilarious, incredibly descriptive nickname, the whistling shithouse.
And it didn't get much better for a while. During World War II, bomber crews had to deal with Elson chemical bucket toilets that would frequently tip over and spill everywhere during evasive maneuvers. Later, those early commercial jetliners used a recirculating blue water system. But the catch? The airplanes had to carry hundreds of gallons of heavy water just to flush. Since water is super heavy, it completely ruined their fuel efficiency. Plus, as the flight dragged on, that recirculated water got more and more saturated with waste, creating a seriously terrible smell. Not exactly a first-class experience.
Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of a Flush.
So let's take a look at exactly how the modern vacuum toilet completely eliminated all those heavy, smelly problems. James Kemper's vacuum system, which Boeing first installed back in 1982, is just a total masterpiece of efficiency. Instead of relying on gravity and loads of water, it uses air. You start with a Teflon or nylon non-stick bowl. When you press that button, the electronic flush control unit opens a solenoid valve, which is basically just a super fast electric valve. Instantly, this powerful vacuum pulls the waste through narrow 2-inch pipes, and it pulls it fast. Experts say the waste travels through the plumbing at the speed of a Formula One race car. Honestly, no way.
Now, to understand why this speed and efficiency is absolutely crucial, let's think about the sheer volume of waste here. On an average long-haul Boeing 747 flight, passengers produce about 230 gallons of waste. To put that into perspective, that is almost enough to fill a 4-person jacuzzi. If you had to use fresh water for every single flush, like the toilet in your house, the plane would just be way too heavy to fly efficiently.
So the real magic trick
is how they create that massive vacuum without any heavy machinery. It all comes down to differential pressure. See, at cruising altitude, the pressurized cabin is full of dense, breathable air, right? But the atmosphere outside the plane is incredibly thin. So when that flush valve opens, the higher pressure inside the cabin naturally rushes toward the lower pressure outside. It violently sucks the waste out of the bowl and straight into the sealed holding tank. This means it uses almost zero water, just a tiny splash of that blue sanitizer, which saves a critical amount of fuel weight.
Which brings us to Section 3, Journey of the Waste.
Okay, so the plane lands. Now what? That sealed holding tank obviously needs to be emptied. And honestly, the true unsung heroes of the aviation industry are the ground crew members who handle this. Dealing with aviation waste is highly regulated. These workers have to wear specific personal protective equipment. We're talking heavy-duty gloves, face shields, coveralls, the whole 9 yards. They undergo rigorous safety and hygiene training to manage this waste securely, ensuring there's absolutely zero environmental contamination or health hazards.
The whole operation really centers around a highly specialized vehicle affectionately known in the biz as the honey truck. The ground crew pulls the honey truck right up to the exterior of the plane. They connect this massive hose to a secure outer port, and then the truck uses its own super powerful vacuum to suck all the waste out of the airplane's tanks. It's incredibly fast. The whole draining process takes maybe 5 minutes. After that, a second hose pumps in fresh water and some of that blue SkyChem disinfectant to rinse the airplane's tanks sparkling clean.
Once the honey truck is full, it drives right away from the aircraft to a specialized waste disposal facility located right there at the airport. The truck empties its tanks into this facility, which is actually directly connected to the local municipal sewer system. So at the end of the day, airplane waste goes to the exact same water treatment plants as the waste from your very own home. Kind of makes it seem a lot less alien, right?
And finally, Section 4, the sci-fi future of flight loos.
Now you might be thinking the vacuum toilet is about as good as it gets, considering it's been the industry standard for over 30 years now. But the next generation of airplane lavatories, it represents a massive sci-fi level leap forward. The aviation industry is actually moving away from flight attendants having to do manual wiping, and they're rethinking using fresh drinking water just to flush. Instead, we are looking at a hard pivot toward automated, light-based cleaning systems and some super clever ecological water recycling.
To combat the dreaded ick factor of airplane bathrooms, Boeing has actually developed a self-cleaning prototype. Get this. The second a passenger steps out and locks the door behind them, the empty lavatory is blasted with far UV light. And this isn't your standard tanning bed UV light. It's a specific wavelength that automatically destroys 99.99% of surface pathogens, viruses, bacteria, you name it, in just 3 seconds. 3 seconds. It even automatically lifts the toilet seat to sanitize underneath it. How cool is that?
Throw in completely touchless interfaces for the sink and the trash flap, and you've got a nearly germ-free environment. But it goes way beyond just hygiene. Companies are developing gray water systems that take the water you literally just used to wash your hands and recycle it to flush the toilet, which saves a massive amount of weight. And this is amazing. ST Engineering created the Access Lavatory. It features walls that slide out and expand to give wheelchair users 40% more space without permanently eating into the cabin layout. Add in smart sensors that can actually alert ground crews to potential clogs before the plane even lands, and you are looking at a brilliantly sustainable, next-level system.
So the very next time you find yourself crammed into coach on a bumpy flight, maybe spare a little thought for that tiny convenience at the back of the plane. Hopefully, with a newfound respect for the hidden physics of differential pressure, the fluid dynamics of non-stick bowls, and the unsung ground crews keeping us all safe and sanitary, you'll never view that tiny bathroom or that glowing occupied sign the exact same way again. So the only question left is, are you ready to embrace the vacuum?
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.